Hey, so there's a popular quote that says practice makes perfect. You probably heard this. For, a lot of us practicing over and over again, the repetition, the reps are going to make us feel like a lot more confident, and that's because it's mostly less risky. The problem is that practicing just takes a lot of time. It's a lot of time. So, for example, if you've ever heard some of the TED Talks that are absolutely superb, some of the speakers are going to rehearse like 100 times before they actually go on stage. And it's going to be a great speech, but it could take them 6 months to train, and in that time, they're not going to have time for anything else. We all have the same amount of time in a day, and then in a week, and a year, and practicing way too much just means you're going to have to reduce the number of things that you do. And on top of that, you learn so much more and so much faster just from actually doing and making mistakes along the way. So for example, some people are going to spend decades learning a new language in the classroom, and they're never really going to be proficient, and they still won't feel confident enough to speak up to actual people, in that language that they just learned. And I know a lot of people that had no classroom language training or very little, and then they went straight out to another country to try it out for a few months, and then they're going to struggle for sure in the first couple of weeks, maybe even months, but then soon enough they're going to be speaking fluently, and it doesn't even take a year. It's like within 6 months or so, and they're going to have conversations with locals and feel confident doing so. How are you going to know if you need to practice speaking up in a difficult conversation, like when you want to say no, or when you want to give constructive feedback or make a request? You got to remember this. Rehearsing, it can be really useful for some people in some situations, but it's really a huge barrier for other people. And if you're always practicing, always practicing before speaking up, then there could be some bad consequences. So you could, for example, end up giving up too soon. You might not even speak up at all. You might not be able to really connect with the other person emotionally who you're talking to. You could even forget what you really have to say, or say something else that's not relevant. You might miss out on important information. You might even sound kind of robotic. So to help you figure out if you should practice or not before speaking up, saying no, giving feedback, I'm going to share with you a couple of questions that are going to help you decide, okay? The first one is, how committed are you to speak up? So if you're not really committed to speaking up, then focus on what's going to increase your chances of actually speaking up and taking action. So for some people, that means they're going to rehearse more, but for other people, like me, it's really improvising. You can also really increase that personal commitment by really sharing it with someone that can hold you accountable. And the second question is, how complicated is the message that you have, or the speaking up message? Because some messages are really complicated, like when you go ask for a raise, or when you go for an interview, but they only happen maximum once a year. So yeah, practice for those. But something simple like saying no to someone from work, you don't really have to practice that. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. Another one is, how long will the opportunity to speak up last? So a lot of times the opportunity is time sensitive, and you might not have enough time to really prepare. So it's way better than to take advantage of the opportunity right then and there, even if you do it quite imperfectly. So for me, that happens a lot when I go to conferences and things like that. When I want to be noticed, I want to connect with the speaker and other people to network, because that's the whole purpose I'm there. So I'm going to ask a question during the Q&A, even if I don't feel like my question is good, or if I haven't really prepared my question, I don't feel confident, but I'm going to do it because I know that once the speaker leaves the stage, it's going to be really hard to even get hold of them, and then kind of the opportunity is lost. Another question that you should ask yourself is, how crucial is the situation for you? If speaking up is really important to you, then you have to make sure your top priority is speaking up. And then your second priority is to speaking up well, but first of all, you need to speak up. And I've been in meetings, for example, where they were deciding the performance ratings of the people that worked for me. And I would make the case, and then some questions came up or some comments, and I needed Now, ideally, I wanted time to prepare to talk through those questions that came up, but I didn't have time because they were deciding the scores right there and then. There was like no other time to do it. Then your goal is to speak up, even if you feel unprepared, otherwise you're going to miss the boat. Here's another question. It's around how anxious do you get when you're practicing and delivering the message? Because if you're that kind of person that gets really anxious, you have self-doubt, then you're a lot more likely to quit, like to not actually speak up or do it really poorly. And you're certainly going to get really a lot more anxious when the situation is more complex or more important and have higher time sensitivity. So if you're going to feel more anxious when you practice, then consider doing it less. But if you feel anxious when you don't practice, then practice more, right? Another thing, do you overthink it a lot? Do you overthink speaking up? Because some people like to really do a lot of research, script everything, but then they just never feel really prepared. And then they really get into this analysis paralysis, and they wait and they wait and they wait, nothing happens. So overthinkers might even feel less prepared. Overthinkers may even feel less prepared when they practice more. So if you're the kind of person that where advanced preparation is going to make you speak up less likely, then don't do it. Don't do it, or limit the amount that you do. Okay. Another one, what is the opportunity cost for the time that you're spending practicing? Because it takes time, right? Do you tend to prepare and practice more than everybody else in your company, in your team, in performance reviews and meetings, and important conversations? Because it surely can help build your confidence, but at the same time, it's going to steal a lot of that precious time that you have to work on other important projects and network and do other things. So you got to think, okay, what else can I do at that time instead of just practicing? Another question is, what's more important to you? Is it the words or the emotions that you convey? Because when you are, let's say giving a speech or talk that you've practiced a lot, it's really easy to get focused on the words and not have the passion and the emotion in what you say. And sometimes, a lot of situations, it's more important to express that, that emotion, that enthusiasm, that passion, that frustration, than to really have the perfect words, because people, they connect with emotion more than with the words. And then figure out what is more important to you. Is it like the actual words or the outcome of what you want, right? Because practicing is going to shift your attention on how well you perform instead of the actual outcome that you're achieving. That happens a lot with public speaking. So it also kind of makes you a little bit blind to the reaction of the person that you're talking to, because you focus so much on yourself. And then what is that going to do to you? That's going to reduce your ability then to adapt based on how the person's reacting to you. So remember this, that taking imperfect action is always going to be better than not taking any action. It's usually going to be better than taking action that is a little bit delayed, right? So if you find it hard to speak up, and if you're the kind of person who just tends to overthink it, if you get really anxious when you're practicing, then think about these questions and decide if you really need to practice that much or how much you're going to practice. Because if you decide that it's not that relevant, then speak up more and allow that progress of actually speaking up and doing it in real life with real people to build your confidence slowly, build your skills. Because the more you speak up, the better you are going to get at it. The more you speak up in real life, the better you're going to get at it. And you might, in finding the right words for each situation. And it's going to be so much easier as well for you to implement it in real life, because you're going to learn by actually doing.